afternoon. I'd like to welcome you to our presentation on the agriculture industry in the 21st century. My name is Kristine Brands. I'm an assistant professor of accounting at Regis University in Denver, Colorado. And my co-presenter is Michael Lemons.
I am the department chair for agriculture at Odessa College in Odessa, Texas.
We'd like to explore an important industry of the 21st century, the agricultural industry. We'll first take a look at the goals that we think that the industry should meet. Then we will review the global agricultural industry risk factors. We will identify and discuss future strategy for the long-term success of the global agricultural industry, and then we will present conclusions. According to Dr. Ashley Lovell, professor of agricultural economics, Tarleton State University in the Texas A&M University system, we need to look at the future in the agricultural industry from the standpoint of a global economy and what we do for the entire world to improve our environment while producing high-quality food for an increasing population demand. Franz Fischler, former European Commissioner for Agriculture, says that food security will be a priority. We must expect volatile markets and prices on the supply and demand side. The farmers will need to focus on sustainable agriculture and protect the environment. Food security will be a mirror of the environment. Let's take a look now at future goals that we believe are necessary for the global agricultural industry. First of all, provide global food security. And by that we mean we need to focus on ensuring that everyone in the world has an adequate and a safe food supply. There are constraints to meeting this goal, and they are the scarcity of natural resources, water, land, and fossil fuels. Next, we need to improve the environment while producing high-quality food to meet the demand from global population growth. The environment is an important input in this objective, and there's some serious problems with it. We also need to develop resilient-based agricultural systems to achieve sustainable agriculture. Quite simply, we cannot continue to treat agriculture and its production the way we have in the past. And then finally, the ecosystems that we depend on to drive agriculture must be designed to withstand and to defend the great threat of global warming. Let's now take a look at the risk factors in the global agricultural industry that we have identified. We're going to start with population growth, and then the issue of poverty and food security within that. Competition for scarce natural resources. We'll go into detail about water, fossil fuels, and land scarcity. Then environmental degradation, and leading that topic is global warming, issues with soil and with water, and then finally time. This chart presents a projection by the World Bank of the global population in 2050, between 2010 and 2050. And as we can see from that top bar on the chart, the world's population is expected to grow to 9 billion people. That's 9 billion people. And that applies a lot of pressure on the agricultural industry to be able to produce enough food to feed the worldwide population. The pressure on agriculture from this increase in population, and this increase in population is not in all regions worldwide. For example, Europe and North America are expected to have their populations decline and level off, and other areas such as Asia and the Pacific, Africa, and Latin America are expecting population increases. And in those areas where there's population increases, there are real questions about whether or not agricultural production can meet the demand of those people. Wherever there is an increase in demand on food, there is also a demand on the natural resources that are necessary to produce that food. Let's look at another risk, and that's water scarcity. We've got a conflict between urbanization and industrialization and the agriculture worldwide. Who's going to get those scarce resources? We find that water reserves are dropping. China is depleting its water table by 10 feet a year. India, another one of the emerging economies along with China, is depleting its water table by 20 feet a year. In the U.S., the Goala Aquifer, which is the largest aquifer in the United States and one of the largest in the world, has seen its level depleted in half since the 1960s. That's a major source of underground water supply in this region. Additionally, there's an increasing reliance on irrigation, and in part that's caused by the effects of global warming. Water is now called the new oil. Next, let's look at fossil fuel depletion. According to Kirschman, stored energy is expected to run out by 2030. This is a serious risk factor for the global agricultural industry because it is necessary to have energy to be able to produce the products. Whenever there's an increase in energy demand, there will be an increase in food prices. And some of the reasons that that's caused are transportation to market, fertilizers, phosphate and nitrate fertilizers, which use fossil fuel, will also increase in price. And then we have irrigation power, which is also powered by fuel to get the water to the cropland. The next risk is land. Arable land, quite simply, is decreasing. As we mentioned, there is land use pressure from urbanization and industrialization. So who's going to get that scarce resource? Crop yield also puts pressure on land because it's possible that it may deplete soil nutrients, and that in turn will cause a reduction in yields. So here's a graphic that shows you that conflict. On the left, we have the farmland, and on the right, urbanization. Now, who's going to successfully meet their requirements and get the resources that they need? This is a huge problem. Another risk is environmental degradation. Industrial agricultural practices have been causing problems because they've been trying to expand crop yields to the detriment of the environment. Global warming is a serious issue. According to Klein, by 2050, the average temperature is expected to rise 3.3 degrees centigrade. The UN is calling for carbon emission reduction by 2050 to avert adverse global warming effects and the adverse impacts from floods, sandstorms, and heat waves. Here is a map of the sub-Saharan African region. This one is particularly at risk because those countries hover along the equator and are expected to really take the brunt of global warming. And The next risk, time. Time is running out. We need to act now to develop methods to protect